Hi, Zizaran here with another mini podcast, and this time with Pohx, the righteous fire god. You might have previously seen him mourning the death of RF, but here he is back again playing righteous fire. Nothing can stop him. So I figured we would do a quick talk with Pohx and talk about righteous fire. I'm very excited to hear how it's going. So thank you for joining me today, Pohx. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, pretty happy, discovering new things in Path of Exile. It's always fun, right? You read the patch notes and your heart sinks and you're like, oh man, but then you start playing and you fiddle around with stuff and remember just how monstrous the game is with how many different things you can do.
So what are you playing?
So I've got two Righteous Fire builds this league. We've got the level 98 Righteous Fire Inquisitor. Pretty happy with it. It's farming tier 16 Wandering Path, full Delirium Wildwood maps. Very happy with that build. Does not die that often. And then we've got the new broken build Mono Righteous Fire that puts that character to shame, and it's in tier 1 maps. But that one's a lot more expensive to get set up, so pretty happy.
So what was the damage like?
Personally, in a softcore trade environment, you're buffed.
Yeah.
But your ceiling is lower. This is specifically Life Righteous Fire. So what happens is, with Life Righteous Fire, because you can scale your life and your energy shield kind of like faster than you can scale your gem level. Primary example, in softcore trade, Utula's, I think it's Utula's Hunger, the body armor, gives you like 800 to 1,000 life, is literally 5 chaos. So maybe you buy a 900 roll 1 for 10C and you 5-link it. That is a massive surge of damage already to your Righteous Fire. And then Replica Soul Tether for the first few days was only 20 chaos. And the roll, it's between 4 and 6, so it's not that big. So you put on a Tulas, you put on a Replica Soul Tether, you gain literally like 5,000 life and like a bunch of ES. So that really helps circumvent a lot of the direct nerfs to Righteous Fire's clear. The problem, though, is still pushing your single target. Now, thankfully, though, on a league start environment, for me personally, running around with like 3 million combined DPS does not really feel that bad for me with a dot build. 3 mil, I'm more than comfortable for doing like Maven, Uber Elder. Pretty much all of the basic pinnacle bosses are not really a problem. The biggest concern I see is when you are trying to take that character and become like immortal. Normally with Inquisitor, you would pivot to Aegis Melding. You pivot to Aegis Melding, you drop your life by like a couple thousand, you drop your ES by a couple thousand in favor of mitigation. They don't really want you doing that anymore because now you're being penalized. So a primary example for my Righteous Fire Juggernauts, they lost half of their Righteous Fire damage, more. The further you push the build, the more it gets nerfed for the life version. So a lot of people were walking around with level 28 to 32 Righteous Fires. I mean, we're talking about +1/+1 amulets, +1/+1 weapons, double corrupted body armors, things like that. Those are the versions that got nerfed. But for league start progression, if you play the Utula version with Inquisitor, it actually gets buffed. It's just the ceiling is lower. Right.
And then you have mana force arrows that you can switch to afterwards when you have more currency. Sorry, I'm very tired. The mana RF. Mana force RF.
I think Mana Righteous Fire is the endgame version of RF builds.
Right. So how's that looking? Like, how do you scale it like Archmage?
Okay, so let's get... So right now, this is my first day playing it, so I'm sure there's a lot of inefficient strategies going on right now. But essentially with what you're doing is you want to start Hierophant. So you start Hierophant, and already there's this beautiful thing called Sanctuary of Thought, which gives you 100% AoE. So now your AoE is already like an endgame Righteous Fire build right off the bat. So that's kind of crazy. I can actually send you a screenshot really fast and show you my AoE with 0 AoE on the tree. It is pretty obnoxious. There's no literally just the base skill with Hierophant. So, I'm sure Scry will pop that up. So one of the cool things on how you scale is it scales with your spell damage. So complete opposite of regular Righteous Fire. So one of the main factors about this is you're going to be scaling your mana, which gives you your base damage. Mana is, in my opinion, easier to scale than life and energy shield on a budget, so you get a decent amount of base. And then you really want to do the pivot to low life. The primary reason for low life is, if you've ever played int stackers before, I'm sure you've played a bunch. You're always kind of going to be around Pain Attunement. Pain Attunement is favored on the inside of the tree, so that's already 30% more for going low life. Because you're going low life, this fits really well with Ivory Tower. So you can reserve all of your life, you know, use a Prism Guardian, start scaling obnoxious amounts of energy shield, and then you start to kind of balance your base mana against your energy shield. And then as a mana stacker, you get crazy buffed this league because of the charms for gain percent maximum mana
Oh
as
yeah,
energy
that's so
shield.
nice.
Now, unfortunately, that doesn't scale your damage, but that doesn't
Yeah.
matter because you'll get to a point where you'll be so tanky, you start to just ignore defensive layers because you can use, for example, the recovery on Armor ES Mastery. Recover 5% energy shield over 1 second when you take physical damage from a hit.
I'm just like sitting here thinking because I'm actually looking for specifically like anywhere between like tier 4 and tier 5, sorry, tier 4 and tier 8 map speed farmer just to build up my essence stack. And I'm sitting here like Steel Mage, I say we. Steel Mage just found an ivory tower, so that's our
Okay.
ivory
Yeah,
tower.
you're average.
So I'm
So I
just
don't
sitting
know.
here listening like, oh, that sounds nice.
So there's a couple of downsides in hardcore specifically. Number
It's very
one,
scary.
I'm running core skating elixir. Granted, I have, but you know, I'm using the flask tech, so I have three. I only have 3 flasks on, and I have
Oh, okay.
brutal restraint with Bulbaba.
Yeah.
Bulba.
Yeah.
So, for example, I pressed my flask before we started this call, and they're still automating in my hideout.
Yeah.
I'm not doing anything, right? I personally have never encountered anything that turns off my thing. Also, with Ivory Tower, if you're not using Indigon, and your core skating elixir falls off, you still have a big mana pool because I'm not reserving anything on mana, right? So the idea is,
Yeah, it would be hard for it to go through both. I'm surprised you're running course getting elixir on softcore. Isn't like
so
just
the
your
only,
ivory tower
yeah,
enough?
so this is what I mean by I've only played it for a day. This is a whole
Yeah,
new
yeah.
like archetype for me. But the primary thing of the core skating elixir is even if I was not running core skating, I would be running a ruby flask. So all I would be gaining is the suffix on a flask, right?
Right.
Because there's a lot less sustainability on energy shield when you're playing a Hierophant. So you really need to get as much recovery as possible. I'm also using, for example, like a Shav's Revelation, which I'm definitely dropping because it's kind of weird playing a mana stacker without the ability to generate mana. I mean, it works
Yeah.
right now because when I'm clearing, I have like 2% mana gain on kill. So I like just shield charge through and it's just constantly,
So it's
feeding.
it's kind of like the old Isla occultist that like
Yeah,
you light
it's
yourself on fire and you almost die unless you like stop, or if you
well,
don't, if you do stop.
yeah, just the mana pool though.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
my ES. Yeah, my ES sustains just the mana pool.
Yeah.
So people have been talking about using like a brand expiring thing, which I've been trying, but it's 4 points, and essentially you use like either the new Armageddon brand that's like instant, so you cast it and it
That's
just
so
already
cool.
expires, right? And you get 10% max mana per cast, or
Yeah.
like you can try a penance. I'm using like penance brand of conduction right now, trying that out. It's also some weird scenarios. This whole new things to me. You get so much flat lightning damage from Arcane Cloak, you can actually shock. So you can use
Wow.
like overcharge on Frostblade and get like a 25-30% shock. So there's just so many things I'm just like, what is happening? This is not Righteous Fire that I'm used to.
Are you gonna be using? Can you fit the Maven boots on this at all, or?
So I'm sure I could, but I don't know if it's worth it.
Right. I was
You
just thinking the
do
AoE
so much.
explosions would be so big.
It would be, but like everything dies right now, so it doesn't
Yeah.
even matter, right? Like if I were to pop in Awaken Ink AoE, I think I would hit like 2/3 of my screen. And you know,
That's
like I
nice.
said, when my Arcane Cloak goes off, so right now I guess I can't really look at my tooltip. I don't have my buffs on correctly, but I think yesterday we peaked at 1.4 million tooltip, and I've played the build for a day, right?
Wow.
Like there is so much room for improvement. When I look at my mana pool being 8.5k, that's not a big mana pool for a mana stacker, right? Like if that was 15k, that's
Yeah.
just massively increasing the base damage of it. And then Indigon is scaling all your percentages. This is another cool factor. With Indigon giving you upwards of God knows how much percentage. I mean, let's see. So I think it stacks a total of 2,000%. I'd say the average player, let's just say you're only procking 500%. That trivializes the need for increases.
It's so good, Indigon.
Right?
How doable? So I don't have an Indigon in SSF right now. We haven't done Uber Elder yet. How do you think it's gonna be without Indigon for me?
I mean, if you're just trying to farm low tier content, I think
Yeah.
it would still be okay, but I don't really know yet. I think I haven't played it enough
Yeah.
to set up a budget version. I want to try out different body armors instead of Ivory Tower because I'm beginning to think that maybe the play is not strength stack. So I'm a little mixture of like strength and int, but now that I
Right.
think about it, like strength's not really like it's good for Shaper's Touch because I'm using Shaper's Touch as well.
Right.
But I'm not really sure if I even care about the strength portion at all. I think I'm just gonna drop strength off my affixes and just try to cap my chaos res, and that'll just feel much better as a build, right? Because I'm sitting here with like 13,000 energy shield, but minus 52 chaos does not feel good, even with that much, right?
Yeah.
One of the other cool things, I think you would appreciate this for hardcore, you stack in with Shaper's Touch. That gives you crazy amounts of evasion. So
Oh.
Eternal Blessing Grace, which is
Oh.
fantastic, right? You can get like, I mean, if I
How
Eternal
much
Blessing
evasion
it
do you
right
have?
now, let's see. Grace by itself is giving me 13,000, but it's only a level 17 gem,
Wow.
and I'm at 1,100 int, which I don't think is unrealistic at all right now.
Yeah. So what's your total evasion?
Just 13,000
Right.
at the moment. But I mean, that's if I turn off Grace, it's 0.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's
So
good.
I think that could get to probably close to 20,000 with like a,
That's respectable. You're like dodging a lot. Oh, that's
yeah,
really cool. I like that.
Cyclopean Coil. If you find that, keep it. Good budget.
Yeah, so we
Gives
don't
you
have one
perma shock
yet.
immune. Okay.
Yeah. We haven't like we've been doing very few bosses. It steals on a Pathfinder. It's where
God,
he's
you guys
farming a
scale.
taste of hate. I actually was doing a Pathfinder, so I died because I went too high without a taste of hate.
F. That
I'm
sucks.
remaking a champion now. I have like insane gear for that. I'll do bosses tomorrow. This looks so cool though. I'm just like browsing your gear. It's like so much room for
It's
improvement too.
Yeah, it's really scuffed. Like the amulet, if you're looking at the Eye of the Great Wolf, I like don't want that. I just had a lot of currency and wanted to buy stuff before
Yeah.
everything just went to obnoxious prices. But you know, thinking about it, I don't need percent all attributes like that when I could just craft myself an easy, you know, an int amulet with an int fracture or a chaos res fracture, whatever, spam for int. And then if you are good at betrayal, I think I watched Captain Lance's video on this last league. You
Mhm.
basically can make like medium tier budget amulets and then throw them with Jorgen in betrayal
Yeah.
to try to get the percent all attributes one.
Yeah,
And
Jorgen's
then
really
like,
good.
yeah, that is huge. So
Oh,
one
it's
of the
such a
biggest
cool
hurdles with
build.
this build, for sure, one of the biggest hurdles is getting your regen to feel good.
Yeah.
I'm I'm okay right now because I'm using like Shav's Revelation, but if I drop Shav's Revelation, I'm like barely sustaining. But the thing I think the key idea is to just get a monstrous energy shield pool and really rely on the recover 5% of energy shield over 1 second because I believe that stacks. So when you're just shrugging off damage, that's literally healing you. And then during emergency situations, you can just press Vol Discipline.
Yeah. So this still burns your life, right? Life and energy
Yeah,
shield.
this burns your life, which Energy Shield protects, based off of your mana pool.
Right. And are you doing mind or matter or anything like that, or
No, I have Mind Over Matter from the Ascendancy, like
yeah?
the 10%, but that doesn't do anything because you gotta like if my Energy
Oh
Shield
yeah,
drops, I
yeah.
have
It's
like no
only
life.
yeah.
I will say
I
Mind
forgot
Over
that it was
Matter
before
is probably
life.
the way to it's probably the way to level the build, right?
Yeah.
Like if you don't want to die, you just go like full Mind Over Matter conversion and like actually have a solid build. I kind of just brute forced it in softcore, right?
That
I was just like, I want to just go low life right away.
that is a little sad too, though. It's almost like your mana pool is like almost wasted.
Yeah, but it's not so bad
Yeah.
because of Indigon. That's like
Yeah.
the primary reason
Hundred
for it,
percent.
right?
Hundred
Yeah.
percent.
That's what I'm trying to do now is drop the Shav's Revelation and build mana regen so I can properly like figure out a way to dump with Indigon. So right now it's a very relaxing playstyle. It's Arcane Cloak on left click and walk. I'm so fast right now that I don't need to shield charge. I want to shield charge, but you know, I'm trying to still fix
Yeah.
everything. And just the Arcane Cloak with it going off every few seconds is jumping my tooltip to like 600k.
So
Like that's
are you hitting all the way up to 2,000 on Indigon, or how much do you think you're
no,
spending?
no, no, no. I think I'm hitting maybe like 20% of my total stacks. I think that there are rare instances when I do hit closer, and that's when I'm like 1.4 million. But I look at my
Yeah,
tooltip and I'm like, if I doubled my mana pool, that would double my base damage, which would double everything, literally,
that's
right?
very fun.
Uh, One of the other cool mechanics I'll say as well is as a Hierophant, you get Conviction of Power. So that's
Mhm.
4 minimum endurance, which is pretty nice. You also get Arcane Blessing, which is 20% more spell damage while you have Arcane Surge, which is another multiplier. And you gain Arcane Surge when you hit an enemy
Yeah.
with your Frost Blink, which is really cool. And then you also gain Arcane Surge like on kill from Arcane Capacitor. What I'm trying to do as well right now is I might even put like Frostblink with Archmage. So while I'm clearing, I'm dumping
Oh,
mana with that.
yeah.
But I don't want to get in a scenario where I'm like stuck. But then again, with the perma flasks, like it doesn't feel bad. Like I don't feel like I get stuck really. So
Yeah.
many things to figure out. It's you know it's a new puzzle, right? Haven't
Yeah,
played
there's
Mana
so
Stacker
especially
since
with
Ultimatum.
charms, there's so much to play around with. You can even get explosions and stuff.
Yeah, oh, I
There's
know exactly what I'm going for with charms, but I don't think I'm going to say them yet because then I'm not going to be able to afford this.
yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
It is a lot
What I
like
will
that to
say
swing.
for you, if you want to play this version, definitely try to find a Prism Guardian with a 21 Purity of Fire. That
Right.
helps brute force your sustain a lot because Prism Guardian's +2. Purity of Fire in there goes to 23. That's another breakpoint for max res.
Yeah. I'll start like leveling some things for it. It's either this or I will do. See, I really don't want to do lightning or a dead eye. First off, it has like no survival, so like it'll die because the essences are gonna
Yep.
be crazy. And I would love if I can get a build that can do just really fast. Like if I can get like 200 MS or something, that'd be sick. But if I can do the league mechanic as well and empower things, although
Right. Yeah.
empowered essences sounds pretty awful.
It
Um,
sounds like it's going to kill you.
yeah. I also looked into
We,
Exsanguinate. That might be fun.
it's true. Yeah. Sanguinate is strong. What was it, yesterday, I think, or the day before, when I was doing my tier 16, you know, like I said, full wandering path on the, I say full wandering path, I mean map modifier effects with wandering path. In my tier 16 maps with Delhi and Wildwood Empowerment,
Yeah.
we made a mushroom, I called him the Mushroom Man. And I must have picked like, I don't know, like 7 altars to make him just have like 3 times extra damage mods on top of everything else with 80% physical overwhelm. And I mean, I could not even remotely come close to this thing with my RF build. So we started bringing in people with Giga Chad builds, and Mushroom Man just put everyone to shame. People would see
Wow.
him and just dead has been slain. It took like 10 minutes of kiting him with RF to kill him. It
That's
was
so
very
funny.
unfun. He dropped an orb of binding. It was totally worth it.
Yeah, I've seen people fighting things, empowered things and stuff for like ages and then nothing.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is if you get something that's that tanky, unless you really want to go for it, I usually will just skip it. Right?
It's
If it takes more
also,
than
I think GDD are taking the majority of our drops and giving them to this one guy called Empyrean.
oh,
Um,
I see. Yeah, that makes sense. It's getting siphoned into the group, right?
it's gotta go somewhere.
Yeah.
How are you enjoying the league?
I like it a lot. So at first, when I first started playing it, you know, I went in, I was like, oh, this is very like atmospheric. I don't really know what word to use there. Like it was
Yeah.
kind of unique. You go in, it's like delving, but not having to set anything up. And then I was like, oh, you know, the first couple days is kind of busted. You know, I have never been spawn killed before in white maps. And I so like I've seen clips. You saw the Mathel clip, right? Of
Yeah. He
just
was getting
so I
farmed.
had I had abyss monsters that were like that.
Oh
Except the
wow.
abyss monsters, you know how they hit the phase run? They
Yeah.
hit the phase run, you can't like zero. They just pop up and it says resurrect, and I'm just like, what is this?
Nothing personal,
So
kid.
yeah, so you know, then they
uh,
nerfed it a couple times, and I was like, okay, this is a lot more manageable. I will say though that there's still some really busted stuff in there, like the troll shamans. I think you know, came across a troll shaman after the nerfs,
yeah.
and I looked at him, and he picked up a rock, and he hit me, and I just went straight to Act 7. Like I literally logged in Act 7. I'm like, how does that happen? Came up with a theory: the harder you get hit, the further back in the acts you get sent.
Oh,
Yeah, but
so
it's
funny.
fun. Yeah, it's fun. Now that I've learned that like blue, so I know what to focus on, like I don't really care too much for making currency off of like I don't want to look at every single shop and look
Yeah.
and buy the so what I do now is I know I can just buy them out and list them. I just prioritize blue because blue is currency drop and it is really noticeable. Like when I get blue empowerments, I see mobs pooping currency all over the place. May not always be divine orbs, but I mean I see stacks of
I
using
wonder
chaos, etc.
I wonder if that'll work with Harbinger for farming fracturing shards. That'd be so nice.
Oh, if it like inhabits the harbinger mobs and forces them to I think you would you want yellow instead? Or would that not work? Because yellow would be a quant multiplier to them,
I don't know. Yeah, maybe.
right? I guess it depends if they themselves drop more currency or if
Yeah.
it's like a static drop on top of them.
Yeah, I wonder like if the ones that like give currency will just force it to drop fracturing stuff, but I don't know. I might experiment with it 'cause I have like very little both annulments and fracturing shards on SSF, so kind of have to run it anyway. I'm just
Speaking of
scared of
SSF,
empowering. Hmm.
that is where I think RF does get hit the hardest for progression, right?
Right.
Usually in SSF, I would play Juggernaut. Juggernaut, the standard version, gets hit the hardest, and I will say that a lot of people talk about like life stacking on a Juggernaut, but if Juggernaut already struggled with damage and then you forego damage to stack life, you're
Yeah.
going to do even less damage, right? So I actually think that Chieftain life stacker is probably a really good way to go in SSF
Oh.
because Chieftain, you don't really need damage. You just get enough damage to clear, and your explosion kind of does the
Yeah.
rest. And that way you can kind of build up wealth while remaining tanky. You can go like, what is it, Warlock, Petrified Blood, to try to like break even. And
Hmm.
then I think that's probably a good way to go speed farm in SSF. Yeah, I think otherwise Inquisitor would probably be the pick, just because
Yeah.
Inquisitor, it's always easier to scale energy shield with life
You
rather
need
than just
Aegis there
one.
though.
No, I don't go Aegis anymore.
Really?
Well, that's the thing. So Corrupted Soul and Aegis is a tricky combo,
True.
right? So I actually just use Saffles, which I know it seems crazy, but I have 30% fizz conversion
Right.
with
I'm
endurance
so scared
charges.
of that.
Yeah. Well, I don't like that's the thing. When you have 30% fizz conversion with a pool of 10,000 life,
Yeah.
and 4 permanent endurance charges, because I have the charm 30% chance to gain endurance charge when you get hit, and then I have 30,000 armor on top of that. So it doesn't feel that
Absolutely.
bad to me at all.
That's good.
But yeah, it requires some setup, because if you go Saffles with no fizz conversion and 20k armor, you're gonna get kind of deleted
Yeah, yeah,
by
yeah. I'm so excited to see how it goes with this Mana Forged RF. I'm still
Mono
calling it
RF. Yeah.
RF. What is kind of Mana Forged? Mana. What's it?
I mean, yeah, I guess you say Monoforge and my brain thinks of arrows.
Arrows? Yeah.
Like, yeah, you just say Monoforge
Arcane
and my brain
Devotion.
finishes
Righteous
arrows.
Fire of Arcane Devotion. I'm excited to see
Yep.
how it turns out though. Thanks so much for doing a call with me. I'm sure a lot of people have been like curious to see how RF is gonna be now. And
Yeah, no
especially
problem.
with the T gem that came really late. That was like last minute for you.
It ruined my league start. It really did, because they
Yeah.
dropped it at midnight my time, and I'm like, how am I supposed to sleep? Like, I can't sleep. It doesn't. Well, I go to sleep and all I see is just blue circles in my head. I'm like, Mono Righteous Fire, the blue MTX is gonna be perfect for this. How are we
uh,
gonna scale this?
that's
So,
amazing. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining me, dude. Really appreciate
not
it.
a problem. It was a
And
lot of fun.
yeah, everyone, make sure you check. He's over there. Make sure you check Pohx out. Amazing content creator. Made a whole Wikipedia for Righteous Fire. It would have been kind of like, it would have been devastating if it was just gone for a few
Yeah.
patches. Just like put up like a closed sign on the website.
Yeah, I do still have to update a lot on it, but I mean,
Yeah.
majority of the info is still valid. You just have to apply a few changes here and there, right? So,
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, dude. I hope you have a great continuation. And I know you're starting stream now, so I hope you have a great stream, dude.
thanks, man. Appreciate it.
All right. See you guys later. Thanks for watching. Sub if you liked the video and try to die less than I do.